We've got data to suggest that allergies are on the rise, and we've seen some of that data come out. And then there's some other data saying maybe the sort of rates are plateauing now. And I'm always in a biased position because kids are being referred to me because they have allergies. So I've always had clinics full of allergies. But I certainly think in the last sort of 5 to 8 years particularly, there's been a real boom. And there's been a real boom with lots of parents very confused as to whether their baby's symptoms are allergy related. So I was with parents where we'll do like fears versus facts.
Okay.
Like, so fear, is this is how you're feeling, this is the emotions attached, let's label it. What are also the facts in this scenario? So, and that sort of putting it down and getting parents to think about something in a different way, just get it out.
Hello and welcome back to Making Safe podcast. So this year we've got some really exciting guests. We've got professors, dietitians, professionals, all within the allergy space. But just before I start, I've got 2 massive favors to ask for you guys. Please click that subscribe button. The more subscribers, the bigger guests we can get on the podcast. And the second favor being, we launched Trustana about 5 months ago to help the community find allergy-friendly restaurants, airlines, cruise ships and hotels. And if you get 30 seconds spare after the end of the podcast, add your allergy reviews, whether you had a really good experience eating out with an allergy or whether you had a really bad experience on an airline. We want to know about the reviews and we want to make it safer for the community when eating out and traveling. So your reviews really matter. Let's jump into the podcast. The start is always the hardest.
Loads of people that I do, whenever I do podcasts with people, they do the intro at the beginning at the end because you're in the flow.
Because it's so hard.
Yeah, because you're like, hello.
When you're in it, you never know what to say or you trip up on their name.
You trip up. Yeah, we are, everyone who I record it with now, it's so funny. And even filming on Friday, I was like, we'll do the intro at the end once I've warmed up because then it's really like
Or it's best just go with the flow and just like record it now and then just kind of see.
And then see how it goes. Yeah.
So obviously, Lucy Upton, that's your name, right? Yeah. Children's dietitian of over 15 years.
Yeah.
And you've grew a massive following online, kind of sharing your experience and tips. You've got a book. What was recently out? When did the book come out? Was that very recent?
Just over 6 months ago. Yeah. So it did, which was a very massive pinch me moment and was something that I had on like my vision board for like in the next 10 years.
Do you have a vision board of like?
I do. Yeah.
And what's on it at the minute? So obviously the book, you can put
So my book, I can put a big tick on there. What's on my vision board? Do you know what? If I'm honest, so a bit more balance, because I think, and you will fully appreciate this, that when you work for yourself, I think everybody sees the highlights. They see all the fun and incredible things you get to do and all the different sort of pies you might get to kind of have a little mouthful of because you're in the media one day and then, you're doing something else or you're doing a podcast like this another day, but it is slog, isn't it? So there was a lot of nature, getting back to Pilates, lots of time with my family, and then just sort of growing a community, thinking about how else can I help all these parents that I know need help and I know are also really struggling to get the time, energy and resource perhaps from local services. And that's sort of getting me to think a little bit more sort of holistically and maybe laterally about if I could see every parent one-to-one, oh my God, that would be amazing. But it's just so literally hard, impossible. So how can I put things into place so that people can access information that's helpful?
And I feel like time's so limited as well.
Oh, I know.
Like
it gets
some
swallowed.
People don't really see like behind the scenes and like kind of like everything what kind of like goes into it.
If you saw the state of my to-do list most days, like I am my husband really laughs because he's like, is that what's on your to-do list today? And he's like, when are you going to learn it needs to be about a third of that size? And I'm like, no, I'll be fine. And some days you have the days where you hammer loads out, you'll know. And then other days you're just like, boo.
Yeah, just like, well,
I've just overspent from yesterday.
I'd love to talk about your book. Obviously, so that was aimed at kind of like weaning from like from the beginning all the way until like obviously when they get a bit older.
Yeah. I was really fortunate to land on a publisher who let me do what I wanted to do for my first book, which was we were going to call it a Bible, like a children's nutrition Bible. I wanted to go, here's all this stuff that I still hear people getting wrong, they're being misinformed about, there's just not access or information available with perhaps a little bit more than just top line sort of NHS websitey kind of stuff, like just do this. And also that was very much grounded in what I see every day, what I do, what, parents who come and talk to me in clinic kind of get. But I also recognize that parenting in those first 5 years is a constant evolution. So you'll just about get used to kind of milk feeds with your little one after they're born. And before you know it, smacked in the face with weaning. Oh my God, what's that? What do I do now?
How do you do it? Yeah.
And then you got 6 months later, you've got a toddler and things change again. And you're like, well, hold on a minute. Why is that changing? What's going on? Like they're so changeable, evolving, almost unpredictable, that actually parenting around food is very difficult. And parents tell us that. Parents tell me that all the time, that actually, oh my God, it just feels like this thing I've got to get right. And so I wanted something that people could pick up and put down, because it is a chunky book and people look at it and go, oh my God, it's not a chunky book full of nutritional research and science it's me trying to really break down what's going on at this age. What do they need? How do they get it? But also alongside what and how they're kind of eating is that what's going on developmentally that's going to feed into this. Because they're not just little robots. They are their own little people. And I think, understanding developmentally what's going on at each stage really helps reduce some of the burden that parents carry around feeding. Why are they suddenly refusing that? Why aren't they eating loads of food yet when they're weaning? So I wanted to do both, and they let me do all the way up till 5. So
that journey of writing the book,
yeah.
How long did that take you?
So, oh my gosh, this was very funny. So I just come back from maternity leave when I signed my contract. And my literary agent was like, right, look, you actually haven't got very long to write here for this kind of book. It'll be about a year turnaround. He was like, but my first draft had to be in about 6 months after I signed my contract. But I am notorious for being like, I've got loads of time. I've got loads of time. And I remember John, my literary agent, ringing me when I was in London in May. He was like, have you started this book yet? And I was like, yeah, I've made some notes. He was like, no, Lucy, have you started this book yet? I was like, no, I'm going to session it over summer. He was like, I need you to start writing. Oh my God. And so I did in the end. We laughed that I sessioned it, but I did session most of the first draft in about 3 months. Wow. Right before I got married, which in hindsight was
quite stressful, yeah.
Quite stressful. But I just got into the zone, and actually writing is something I love. But and it came really easily because this is my day-to-day. This is what I do. And
you must have had all the research from speaking with parents and kids. So you must have loads of key topics like this is what I want to talk about.
I was like, what do parents need to know? Like, what do they need to know? And the beautiful thing about my job is I get this collision of, I understand all the research. I know how to interpret nutritional science. Like, I've got all the biochemistry and biology and everything from university. But none of that matters if it doesn't make sense to the people we're trying to support, and that's the families and the kids.
They need to collide the two. Even within the allergy space, like sometimes like people speak, it's like so clinical, it's like medical, and I'm like, that just isn't me.
Hugely intimidating. And I think that's why parents are finding feeding kids increasingly difficult, because they go online now for their information. We know that they do. They type it in the search bar of TikTok, like Google now.
It's like overwhelmed.
And the overwhelm, and like these there's a lot of pseudoscience out there. There's a lot of misinformation, and that includes when feeding kids. And the thing about kids is that it feels very high stakes for parents, because there's this sort of underlying ripple and narrative of you've got to get it right.
Yeah.
You've got to get it right. And, this is why I like the early years. There's lots we can do in the early years that really paves the way forward. So I see it as a real great window of opportunity. But it is hard work, because parenting is hard work, and they are full on at that age, at all of the ages. So, I wanted something that was very practical, that they could be like, oh, they've suddenly started doing this, or, okay, that's why it's happening. This is what I can do. Or, oh, I'm really worried about their iron. Oh, there it is. Do you know what I mean? It's meant to be a book that can be picked up, put down, well worn.
What was like the main thing, what you felt when you was like speaking with parents and got kids with allergies?
Yeah.
Was it a particular topic which always kind of come up and you was like, oh, I really need to address this?
I did a few. I mean, I could write a book on allergy and maybe still will. All on its own.
So the first book is particularly about weaning and
it's about weaning. It's about toddlers. So it's about milk feeding, and then it goes on to weaning. Then it's like toddlers and feeding through the early years. And then there is a whole section on key like nutrition, that kind of fundamentals that you need to know for young children. There's a whole section on, I called it Feeding Futures, in that actually it's also about how we feed children and that food relationship, because what they eat is important for life, but also they carry that food relationship from really young age.
It's so interesting you mentioned that. I know you talked about obviously like fussy eating, and I remember like sometimes like kids to say, oh, just give him vegetables and like push it away.
Yeah.
And it's just finding ways to kind of encourage that and like make them feel like they're in control. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So if you've got a vegetable refuser, particularly in those toddler years, it's really, really common.
Yeah.
And every parent goes, hold on a minute. My baby, when they were weaning, they loved it. Lucy, like they used to eat everything. They almost have this like, I've nailed it, and rightly so. Like, it's a tricky time. And so when, you know, that joy that parents get of, look at them eating the asparagus and they think avocado is the best thing since sliced bread, and they're slapping in the salmon, and you think, oh my God, I've got a foodie. And then what nobody tells parents, or they find out after they need it, another reason why I sort of did this book, so you could read a little bit ahead and be like, oh, things change a little bit now. So I'm not surprised by that, is that development shifts from these young babies who essentially between 6 to 12 months, their development is primed to be like, you got to learn how to eat now. And so they're very receptive to different tastes. They're very receptive to learning how to eat, like managing textures. You know, they often go from milk, when you think about swallow it, just in your mouth and swallow, to obviously that chewing, biting, all of those things, because eating isn't innate. It's not something you just do. You learn to do it. So it's not like a reflex that everyone just knows how to eat. And you will see children who've had delayed periods of feeding development because maybe they've been hospitalized and, you know, there's something else much more important at the moment to do. And actually, if they've missed weaning, they haven't just by 12 months, they won't just land on 12 months and be like, oh, well, we missed it and now they can just eat. They've got to learn it. So you have this baby, going back to the vegetables thing, who loves it. It's like, yes, give it to me. I'll suck that lemon. What's that? Like foie gras. Okay. You know, like they'll just go for it. And then you start to see this shift after a year of age where your toddler starts to come blossoming out. And I know everybody says it's like terrible twos. Like, I think they're terrific, but I think they're misunderstood. And I think if we, again, things I was writing in the book, like, let's understand what's going on for toddlers. Like, all of a sudden, like, you have this like thread of like, we call it like food neophobia. So lots of children will experience this developmental trait that we've dragged with us from like caveman times, where if you have an increasingly independent, impulsive, small human who is now able to walk, they can go and do dangerous things. And in the caveman era, that might be like, oh, I'm going to go and have a little nibble on that rotting carcass outside, or those poisonous berries. And actually that's a threat to survival. So this thread of, well, hold on a minute, let's just give them a little bit of a kind of fear. And it's not learnt, it's just almost, again, this developmental thread where they are more cautious. And it doesn't make sense to us as adults, because we're like, you've eaten this loads of times. Why would you just change your mind? But they're not changing their mind. They don't have a fully developed brain to logic it out. They don't care. They don't remember that they ate avocado 65 times before one. They don't know. They don't remember. In that moment, what's shifting for them is, oh, this thing looks a bit slimy, I'm not sure about that. Vegetables or mixed dishes, you know, bolognese and the stews and the wet stuff, or, you know, or that tastes bitter. Again, vegetables, you know, broccoli, green veg, particularly like really bitter taste. And that sends this little warning message to their brain, which might be in this food neophobic period, that goes, wasn't sure about that. And it's hard, but it is so often, it's not a coincidence that the foods that children drop in those toddler years are vegetables. And you look, I'm a dietitian. My daughter is not like, woo, green vegetables.
You record a lot of content with your daughter as well, which is amazing to see. And like how she might copy you, or like not trying to like force it as well.
Absolutely not. And I think this is one of the biggest things, is that when you find yourself, and it's not going to be every child, but inevitably it may well happen at some point, the jack-in-the-box response from parents, which is so normal and understandable, and even I get it sometimes, because I'm like, oh, I'd quite like you to eat a nice balanced meal, is to try and immediately fix. So what we do is we give way too much PR to vegetables. Oh, they're delicious. Yummy, yummy, yummy. They're really good for you. You know, we go overboard. And then we forget, I'm dealing with a toddler who hates being told what to do. So immediately, that almost over-egging, pressure, persuasion, cajoling, all of that stuff that we're trying really hard to get them to eat it.
Quite overwhelming, I imagine.
So overwhelming, digging their heels in, and they really may well push back. And I always say, we almost need to be, and it's hard to do, nonchalant. Like, you just don't care.
You spoke about, obviously, like kind of key exposure, where it might take like 7 to 10 times. We can unpack that for the listeners and how that works.
So I suppose exposure is also what builds familiarity. So, you know, in the same way as I couldn't say to you, and, you know, I know this is a bit of tongue-in-cheek analogy and not directly applicable, but if I was to say to you, I'd really like it if you could ride a unicycle, you'd be like, okay. What? And I'd be like, right now. And you'd be like,
not quite sure.
Not quite sure. So you would need to see it. You would probably need to watch other people do it. You would need to get on it, fall off it, get on it, fall off it, play around with it a bit and work it out. You almost kind of have to support the fact that children are going to be relearning about these foods, and that gaining familiarity is this kind of stepwise process of the food needs to be available for me to learn about.
Yeah.
Because that seems obvious, right? And then I need to be comfortable with that food. So that might take me just accepting and acknowledging it's on the table on my plate and doing nothing with it. And then when I'm ready to try it, kids will often explore in the same way as if I was to put a really, like a delicacy. You love traveling. So if you're abroad and someone put that down in front of you and we're like, that's a delicacy. It's our local delicacy. We've like plucked it from the jungle. And you were like, what the hell is it?
Yeah.
And if you were not quite sure about it,
you've got allergies as well.
Especially if you've got allergies, you're immediately like, oh, tell me more about it.
Who made this?
But you would go through a process where you would look at it.
Yeah.
You might prod it. Like you might touch it, you might smell it. What you're essentially doing is like assessing it and getting used to it, and all the time making a decision about, does this feel similar to anything I have already? Let's pull through all those neurons in my brain. Oh yeah, it's like, you know, it's crispy on the outside. Or is it battered? Is it deep fried? You know, you're pulling all that information, but you're using all those steps to determine whether you are happy enough to get it to your mouth. And kids do that. They look, they smell, they handle it, you know, which is why I say, particularly in the young years, play like that. They might look like they're playing with their food. They're learning about their food. Like all those nerve endings we have on our hands give our brain a lot of information about what's about to reach our mouth. Like it's beautiful development in action, but rules take over. Children shouldn't play with their food. And I'm like, actually, controversially, I think they should, especially in the young years. So that exposure piece takes time. And it also takes time because sometimes the most challenging foods are the ones you have less often. So, you know, let's say it does take some children 20 exposures before they're happy to maybe lick a prawn. Right? You might only have prawns once a week, maybe once a fortnight. So when you pant that out throughout the year, actually it's going to take quite a long time.
So like,
and you might be like, oh, we've had this for ages. Whereas actually, and they're not predictable because have they got garlic on them today? Are they really chewy today? Are they really soft today? They're a bit different. But this is why it's really normal for young children to think that carbohydrates are brilliant, and they love the crackers and the Cheerios and the bread because every time they are bought and offered that food, it's the same.
Is this like the biggest kind of topic you feel like parents kind of come to you with, like in regards to like fussy eating or the struggling?
So for me, it's usually kind of three-pronged. So there's usually help me, my child won't eat, an element of food refusal. I can't understand what's going on. And that has a ripple effect on families because, you know, I famously say probably on every podcast or media thing I ever do, if you're a parent, you don't have a day off feeding your children. You know, things can feel difficult, but you don't have a day off feeding them. And not only that, you've got to feed them lots, lots and lots of times. Food refusal is a big one. The next one I would say is there is this sort of overarching concern that for obviously, you know, nutrition, that their child isn't getting the right nutrition. And that fits with allergy a lot because they see all these exclusions and what that looks like sort of broader than, do you need to start again?
No.
They have all these exclusions and, you know, are concerned about, well, if I'm taking all that out and they can't eat that, are they getting the right nutrition that they need? The same with children who refuse food. And then there might be very sort of specific management things that I might be helping parents with. So it's one of the reasons I love allergy because there's lots of different bits of the dietitian I can be. So there's the dietitian that helps with the weaning and perhaps prevention of food allergy with proactive introduction of allergens to babies and eczema management and that sort of side of things. And then there's the how do we safely ensure that... Go on.
No, I was going to say it must be really difficult then, obviously, maybe first time you've had a child, like you're weaning, but then having that kind of allergy on top of that as well.
It's
that
huge.
Must be so daunting. And do you get a lot of parents feeling like they don't know how to go about it, and like sometimes they might feel like they're being a bad parent when they're not. They're doing everything they can do.
There's so much that early diagnosis when babies get food allergy. So it might be milk allergy, or they start weaning and they're allergic to egg or peanut. It's so interesting, particularly amongst mothers, because sometimes the first questions that they're asking me is, what did I do wrong? Same with my food refusers, actually. You know, is it because I didn't eat this in pregnancy? Is it because I did this, didn't do this? And I'm like, whoa.
Let's take a step back.
Let's take a step back here. Why would you think that this was your fault? Like what has landed you in this, that it's incredibly complex area, that we know has this genetic kind of predisposition, and then all these environmental factors that can kind of fire that off and into action. And actually, it's not because a parent did or didn't do something. But one thing I would say is that I do think, it's so important just parents get the right support early on with their babies and their children, because lots of parents do say to me, oh, I wish somebody had told me that I needed to get allergens in. Because, my child had a milk allergy and I was so worried about them being allergic to something else. I just kept putting off peanut.
It's just so stressful, because obviously, back in the day, they're like, oh, don't eat peanuts when you're pregnant. Now they're saying, do eat
when you're pregnant and when you're breastfeeding, and then you get it in.
It's so confusing. And there's so much information online, and sometimes it must be really hard as a parent to kind of know which information is correct and which isn't.
100%. And I think, but the thing that's really lovely is that some of those proactive things that you can do, and this is I'm the queen when it comes to allergy. My job is to support families to keep children safe. But I have this big thing of what can we do? What foods can we add in? Not just the no, remove. Okay, right, this is what we're excluding. What can we include? How can we adapt this family meal so that everyone can eat it safely? That, love that. That feels like tangibly you're helping families do something every day. And again, when it comes to weaning, how can I help you to feel confident to get this peanut in? Because, we had data out just a few weeks ago from America that looked and said, actually, this early and proactive allergen introduction of peanut seems to have considerably dropped peanut rates. And when you think about it, 43%, I mean, don't quote me directly, I'm sure it's something around that mark. That's huge. That is huge, huge. From an intervention that isn't very expensive, that isn't, it's definitely difficult in terms of mustering up the courage and getting on with it and knowing the steps. But actually, I would say is something that tangibly most families could do.
Because there's a study say 49% of parents are worried about the kids having allergic reaction.
Yeah, of course they are.
It's massive.
Of course they are. And especially, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because there's been so much more in the media about food allergy over the last few years. And personally, I think that's really important.
I always think it is a double-edged sword.
But it's a double-edged sword.
Sometimes you hear about it, and you hear about allergy deaths, and it's obviously great to shine a light on that. But then when you speak to allergy doctors, you speak to people on podcasts as well, they're like, it doesn't happen as often.
It's not as often as you think. Yeah, we have this warped perception of what's normal. Thank you, media. And actually, this is one of the things I say to all my families when they are, they've got this really vulnerable little baby, and I'm like, yeah, cool. A few weeks into weaning, we're going to crack on with getting some peanut butter in, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to start. And they're not worried about the process, but they're worried at the worst of the worst end. What happens if they have anaphylaxis? And one thing I will tell every parent is that I cannot stress how rare that is, particularly in a baby. It is not impossible.
Yeah.
But if I told you and thought about how many high-risk kids and the rest where we've done this, and the number of times I've seen anaphylaxis, actually, I think it's probably zero in a baby.
Lucy just had, this morning, Paul Turner on the podcast.
Yeah.
And the chances of having an allergic reaction is 0.6 out of a million. The percentage is less than 1.
Minute. And for me, I say to parents, it's that benefit of and if we do get it in and keep it in, then that's not something we need to think about anymore. And it's done, and it's also really nutritious food. Lots of these things, when you think about allergens and you think about, peanuts and eggs and all these things that we are proactively introducing at weaning, are also really nutritious food. So, it's just about giving people confidence, and also getting that message out.
How do you kind of build that confidence with the parents where they've got a lot of anxiety around feeding the kids with allergies?
I'd say again, sort of thinking twofold. So there's a lot of support directly to parent. And I think that surprises a lot of people in terms of how I work. I work with children, and I do a lot of one-to-one with children. But actually a lot of the time, my job is to really G up and support and hear what's going on for that family and those parents or caregivers. So I think one of the first things is giving space to talk about what you're worried about. And you can always sense it. When someone's anxious, they don't have to say a single thing. You walk into a room, you're like, or I'll see on a video call or something, I can tell. And I'm like, tell me what you're worried about. What are the fears? Let's put them out in the light of day. That's very Brené Brown, but it's very true. Like, let's hear it. What are you worried about? And validate that.
Validate them.
And I think that's so important. Like, sometimes it's so easy, and people may well have grown up with their worries and their fears just not being validated. And that all of these are very valid. And then having that conversation about, well, here's what we've got to do. And these fears are valid, and like, what's this journey going to be like, so that we can manage that whilst also doing that. And you know, sometimes we'll do an exercise with parents where we'll do like fears versus facts.
Okay.
Like, so fear, you know, is this is how you're feeling, this is the emotions attached, let's label it. What are also the facts in this scenario? You know, so and that sort of putting it down and getting parents to think about something in a different way, just get it out. And
just like distinguish it like between them, between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And also working out what's the most reasonable first step there. So let's say we've been talking about introduction to peanut, you know, so, you know, we might say, you know, start off with 1/4 teaspoon and do it on this day and all these sort of conditions. For some families, that's way too much of a big jump. So we're like, okay, how can I make this easier? How could we go a few steps backwards? So how can I make sure you don't do it on your own and there's another family member around, or somebody else helps you do it? What day of the week is best? What time of the day is best for you and for your baby? Why don't we not start with 1/4 teaspoon? Why don't we literally just get like a pinprick amount, and we will work further back? And I think that's where that sort of personalizing and individualized approach is really important with families. Because again, as parents, we've all got different thresholds and between things. And I sometimes say to parents, look, my gung-ho parents would do this, and my ones who want to be more considered and have told me that they are worried and anxious might do this.
So it's not like a right or wrong way sometimes.
Not a right or wrong way. No.
Do you find like a lot of like people which come to you, what the percentage are kind of like allergy parents? And is it a small percentage? Or is it 50-50?
No, probably I would say somewhere between 40 to 50% of parents. Yeah. I've worked in allergy a long time.
It's so different when you work with a parent with a kid with an allergy. Is it?
It's
in some way. I imagine there's a lot of crossovers there as well.
There is in dietetics and nutrition, because there are lots of crossovers. Because I'll also see families who have children with celiac disease, who have maybe different, you know, who have intolerances, who have foods that are not in children's diets, who have growth worries, and all of it hones in on, I'm concerned about my child's welfare when it comes to nutrition and what I'm feeding them. But I've loved working in allergy because I feel like it can put my like core dietetics to really good use.
Does your doctor have allergies?
No, she doesn't. Yeah. No, she doesn't. Not any that we know about yet. No.
Did you know many people with allergies before you got? Because sometimes if someone doesn't know someone with an allergy, it's like it's such an eye opener.
Feels very
sometimes
distant. So we're quite an atopic family, me and my family. Like, we're the hay fever, eczema, asthma. Sort of atopy is very much in our arena. And like, my little girl has eczema, you know, so I was sort of quite hot on, okay, maybe that's a risk factor, you know. I could kind of see, the joy of my job is that I can take a bird's eye view. And I was like, I know this isn't food. She had eczema when I was breastfeeding her. It wasn't remotely correlated to sort of things that I was eating. It was waxing and waning. And even now it's winter and it's come back. That's very typical for her. But I think I could do that. Whereas when you're a parent and you get that little worm in your ear that someone goes, oh, have you thought about it being X? And of course it can be related to food, and lots of the time it can be, and then lots of the times it isn't. So I have like pollen food syndrome. So
what's that, sorry?
So same as like oral allergy syndrome, the two. So I have really stinky hay fever, and I cross-react to this kind of fruits and nuts that hold a sort of similar structure to the pollen. So I'll get really itchy mouth and like maybe some mild swelling. I've got some really good pictures of some pretty swollen lips, but it just goes down with an antihistamine. So allergy was sort of in my arena, but it was when I did my very first PEDS job, and I was like, I am so fascinated by this because it's different, but it encompasses their every day, and I feel like I can have such a tangible help and benefit.
When you started it, was it like very few like parents, and now it's just kind of it feels like a bit of an explosion, isn't it? Like the last couple of years, I feel like maybe it's a bit more documented now, or maybe it's like more in the media.
I think there is probably a bit of both. So I think, we've got data to suggest that allergies are on the rise, and we've seen some of that data come out. And then there's some other data saying maybe the sort of rates are plateauing now. And I'm always in a biased position because kids are being referred to me because they have allergies. So I've always had clinics full of allergies. But I certainly think in the last sort of 5 to 8 years particularly, there's been a real boom. And there's been a real boom with lots of parents very confused as to whether their baby's symptoms are allergy related. I've probably seen lots more breastfeeding mothers trialing exclusions with sort of food, sort of because they have concerns that their little one is allergic. There is definitely more out there. And also more, what I would definitely say I've seen is more sort of, I suppose, novel kind of allergies, in that, it's very common for me to see milk and egg and peanut and wheat and soy and those sort of very sort of common food allergies. But actually, I've seen much more FPIES than I've ever seen in the last few years. So this very specific type of delayed allergy where children profusely vomit and almost, often end up hospitalized, dehydrated. They're very lethargic. People wonder if they've got sepsis. I've seen more and more FPIES. I've seen kind of allergic reactions to things that are creeping into our food system more often. So I would say like peas and legumes and oats and coconut, we're getting more and more, they're not huge rates, but definitely more of those sort of coming back round in clinic sort of week on week, more often. Which of course is related to what foods and food proteins are in our environment, and they are more prolifically so when we've had a boom with all these products.
And you've worked very closely, you mentioned, with like Helen as well,
yeah,
right?
I have.
And is it Francesca?
And Fran, and Penny, who's our other dietitian.
So is that all within like the same clinic? So is that just throughout your
I mean, we all cross paths. Allergy was quite a small world, really.
Yeah,
when you go to any of these comments, everybody knows everybody.
Point,
yeah, they do, which is lovely. It's like a family, right? And it's amazing to learn off other people. And I think that's something that's really like always should be celebrated. That sort of crosstalk and learning's amazing. But the thing I love about working with Helen and in this setup, so she has sort of an online service and obviously she does face-to-face too, but what she provides within her kind of group and membership is access to all of these different health professionals every month. So if you're a parent, you've got access to an allergist, you've got access to a dietitian, you've got psychology, so Fran, an eczema nurse. So actually there isn't, and that's what allergy services need to be, very cohesive. Because, if someone's talking to you about managing your child's eczema and we're talking about proactive introduction of food allergens and I want that eczema well managed, I really would like them to see dermatology not in 6 months' time, Yeah, and I think that's what lots of frustrations for parents sort of creep into.
I thought I had like ADHD. I probably do. But you just kind of, I'm 30, coming up to 33 now, and it's just like,
how long's the waiting list?
I've ever had 3 years.
Yeah. Wow.
For the NHS. And there was like, look, you can go private, but that might take 12 to 18 months.
And I actually know people who've really struggled with, if they've got a private diagnosis and may need medication, they have to go back through the reassessment process in the NHS for that prescription to carry across.
Also, you can't even get the prescription.
I think, I mean, I think it depends who it is and what they're doing, but it's not, unfortunately, again, that cohesion between, because there are lots more people accessing private services because one, they're available, but two, there are long waits, or in some areas, nothing. Depending on what sort of service.
I always think definitely with the allergy space, trying to see a psychologist or even a dietitian which specialise or understand food allergies. 100%. It's so hard.
They're a rarity.
There's not that many people a lot of time.
No. And again, sort of people come away, and it's a shame because of that sort of mixed experience as well. What I think it sometimes undersells is what a dietitian or what an eczema nurse or, what a psychologist can do for you. Because if you don't have a good experience because that person hasn't worked in that arena, you think, is that it? Is that all I'm going to get? Yeah. And it isn't until you see that there are other things available. And I remember people used to message me on Instagram saying that, why haven't I been told this? Why haven't I been given this? And that's not an easy question for me to answer. I've worked for the NHS, I worked for the NHS for a decade. I so understand how stretched and pushed and how much, you need to work to get your services off the ground.
What would you say the biggest myth is? Is it a myth out there within your kind of job that comes up quite a lot and you're this isn't correct,
Oh my God. I mean, how long do you want me to spend correcting misinformation?
3 hours later.
Oh my God, there's just all sorts. What I would say to parents, I'm going to give it a broad chat here, is that there is a lot of nutrition misinformation online. And I see, let's give the example of I have lots of families who are very worried about lots of ingredients in food at the moment because there's a lot of discussion, and rightly so, about kind of ultra-processed foods. And I find that really disproportionately impacts lots of the parents I see, because if you've got a child who has allergies, the likelihood is you are reliant on some foods that are deemed ultra-processed to make sure they get the right nutrition. So if they're excluding milk, they kind of need a good fortified milk alternative. And, you know, had parents say to me just a couple of weeks ago, well, I'm just going to use leafy greens instead for their calcium. Now, I'm not disputing you can get some calcium from leafy greens, but I gave her an example and literally went downstairs to get it out of the fridge. This is the person I am on a call. You know, here's 100 mils of a fortified milk alternative, and this is how much calcium that provides, about 120 milligrams if it's a fortified option. This is how much your kind of 2-year-old would have to consume of broccoli to get that. It was basically just shy of a whole head of broccoli. So it's all about being realistic and pragmatic. I don't want people to fear foods because, you know, particularly again within the allergy arena, they already do. And they don't need, parents and these children don't need something else to worry about. Well, and I think it's all about creating a balance. You know, yes, for example, plant-based milks are ultra-processed food, right? Yeah. But they have a really good role in terms of what nutrition they can provide and support for that child or adult, right? That's different. We're not going to compare that to like a bag of jelly sweets. You know, this is where you can't just get the paintbrush out and be like, everything is really bad. And then, you know, this is definitely not me saying, I think we need to be thinking, you know, and talking to the food industry about ingredients, understanding them more. But again, there's a lot of kind of myths and pseudoscience out there about lots of these ingredients that gets people really worked up, and understandably so, because they feel, you know, knocked off. They feel like they're having the wool pulled over their eyes. They're concerned about health. But often in the moment in clinic, I'm going to be far more concerned about that growing child getting the nutrients that they need. And so, yes, I am going to rely on fortified cereals and fortified milk alternatives and some of these other products versus, you know, perhaps a particular E number that might be in something, you know, which has been deemed safe thus far, based because we don't put stuff in food in this country very easily unless it has. So
is there anything then in regards to like nutrition, which I think definitely at that weaning stage, which is like really, really important to.
So if I could give parents any advice and you like tied my hands and said one thing, it would be, and it's going to seem so boring and obvious coming from a dietitian, it's what we call dietary diversity.
Okay.
And this is brilliant for lots of reasons. What this basically means is let's try, and this is, again, much more common in my sort of allergy families, let's try and not spend too long on one food and limit their diet excessively and be like, I'm going to do carrot for 3 days and then I'm going to do parsnip for 3 days. And that can be difficult, you know, if you've got a child who's had reactions or you're not sure. But actually what research will show you time and time again is that the more variety that you can put in during weaning, both in terms of what foods you're offering and also that texture progression, one, the happier that child's gut microbiome, which probably has benefits on allergy risk. And actually there's some fantastic papers out from a really brilliant dietitian called Karina Venter the last few years, which has basically showed the more variety you put in during weaning between particular sort of time points, there is associated overall risk reduction in allergy overall. And that's especially plant-based foods. So fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, those sorts of things. And actually those are all very accessible for weaning. So I would just say variety, work back from what you eat as a family. It can be very easy to think there's like baby food and toddler food. Well, there's food. We want them to be eating family foods. How do we work back from that? And of course, don't add salt and don't give them lots of sugar. And there's all those sort of things that we need to be mindful of.
I know you spoke about like sometimes where you say if you eat your greens, you get an ice cream or a treat.
Yeah.
What is there ways to do that? Because I know, I think from what I kind of, when I was doing your research, was like, it isn't always good if they always expect a treat at the end.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of avoiding that. I'm a big fan of avoiding that. And look, hands up, weren't we all the kids that grew up with that? Maybe? Yeah. We're like, and so that feels so embodied and is the thing that we should do now. And the reason we go for a kind of more food neutral platform with kids is because the moment we say, eat your greens, but then you can have an ice cream, you do two things. Well, lots of things. But the key thing is you've just made greens less desirable. They're the thing that you have to force in that aren't as good.
Yeah.
And you've just made ice cream, which is already hyper palatable, and your child will almost certainly say yes to anyway.
Yeah.
even notch that up in terms of how much children will want that, because it's the food that you've had to earn that is special. And actually what we see is children who are able to grow up and moderate their intake around those sorts of foods. Food's not conditional. It's not used as currency. It's never been this really overly special thing that they've had to kind of earn or been bribed with. And what you do see is when that is the case, it is more common for children to grow up, and when they get access to those foods more freely, which they all inevitably do, and I'm sorry, but the food environment ain't going to change that quickly. Yeah. They go, I'm going to have this now. I'm going to do this now. I'm in control now. So this sort of food neutral, like, accept that sometimes they're going to refuse their greens. That's okay. That's okay. We all did that probably when we were growing up.
But don't
escalate it or bribe, use it as currency with anything else. And if you are going to offer those foods, I say to parents, this isn't me saying just give your kid ice cream every day, just be permissive every time they want a cookie. It's me going, you decide how often they're on offer, but when they are on offer, they're not conditional on anything. And we eat them and we enjoy them together. And,
Is that really important then, like family time and eating the food with...
Yeah.
Because a lot of time, like, I think... For example, do you eat the food at the same time as your daughter?
Yeah.
Ray?
Yeah, Ray. Yeah, I do.
I'm always... Aurelia. I'm so bad with names. Ray.
No, you're not bad with names. But everybody's like, how do you say that beginning bit? So everyone at nursery calls her Ray.
Aurelia, yeah.
Aurelia,
do you think that's really important? Or do you feed your child at a different time? Like, what's your thoughts?
So I'm going to be completely honest here. Before I had Aurelia, I was like a 7-8 o'clock dinner gal. That's when I wanted it. I got it in my head that was the time for dinner for me and my husband. And I enjoyed getting everything out of the way and then sitting down and having a nice meal. I've worked in feeding for 15 years and also read a lot of research about family meals. And it is the one thing where I was like, no, we're all going to eat together at 5 o'clock. I know it isn't my most ideal, but actually we've kind of adapted. I actually quite like it because it means I'm not cooking again. I just cook our meal.
And you enjoy the evening.
Yeah, and then I've got my evening once she's gone to bed. I'm not kind of back in the kitchen for second rodeo for the day. And look, I know it's really difficult these days because often both partners, both caregivers are back at work. There's less time. There's a lot of pressure. And I always say to parents, it's not about this like white picket fence that you all got to be there beautifully polite at like the table at 5 o'clock every day. But if you can find designated time to eat with your kids every week, it will have this massive ripple effect on so much more than just what they eat. When you look at the research, it's, children are more likely to eat fruits and vegetables. They are more likely to try new foods, but you also see these huge social, emotional benefits, reduced risk of eating disorders. They're more likely to tell you when something's going on at school, language development. Like, it's actually about that connection and that time with you as well. And, they love it. And I keep sharing this with people because
it's quite a fun time of the day for them as well. Yeah.
They love it because they get you and they might not eat very much, but they have a nice time. And, whether that's, 5 minutes at the table because they're a toddler and they're already distracted and they're off and, we'll just carry on and finish eating our dinner and it's there until we're finished and she can come back if she'd like. They value that time with you. There's a clear routine, but also, this, eating social, like, some people like going out and eating on their own, but if I gave you a choice, would you rather go out and eat with loved ones or friends or by yourself?
With friends.
With friends. Yeah. It's a social experience. And actually young children, when they're sat there with a plate of food in front of them and nobody else is there and someone's going off to dash and clean the kitchen and this, that and the other, actually they're just like, I've got no one to copy. I've got no one to connect with. Is this okay? What is it? Actually, that can be quite challenging. So again, I'm absolutely not judging parents when we have those moments. We do that. I do that sometimes. We don't eat with her all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like, let's all take the pressure off ourselves. But I would definitely encourage parents to consider some time where they want to eat with you. It's like that. Do you remember that Australian advert? And I keep telling people about this because I've been asking kids in clinic the same question. Yeah. It went viral for this reason. And they filmed the parents and the children and they split them up and they both asked them the same question. And they said to the parents and then respectively to the children, if you could have dinner with anyone tonight, who would it be? And you can imagine the parents, they're like Pamela Anderson and, Terry Wogan. And I don't know, there was just there's a list of things. They were Australian actually. So they were like, my mum who's passed away, there were all these things. Do you know what all the kids said? Mum and dad. Yeah. Oh, and then they made the parents watch it back and they were like, oh my God. And actually, I've been in clinic with my kids who are old enough asking them, just testing the theory a bit. Be like, if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be? And they're like, Mummy.
Oh. And how old's your daughter now?
She's 3 in January.
You've just got the one?
One, just the one. for now.
I mean, I was going to ask you as well, what has changed for you, obviously, becoming a mum? That must like really open up the eyes. So.
It does. Do you know what? Motherhood is very humbling. It is equal parts difficult and amazing. And it is an oxymoron and like these competing things all the time. It's the most knackering thing you'll ever do, but it's worth it. And the days are more stressful than sometimes you could ever imagine. But like that moment of joy that you get just washes that all away sometimes. And it's that, you know, even from a feeding perspective, you know, I've been really lucky. We've had that journey has been quite smooth. And maybe that's because, you know, of me, but it's also because I had, you know, a quite straightforward little girl who I didn't have any allergies and she didn't have reflux and, you know, those things didn't happen for her. Maybe they would for another child and I can come back and give you a different experience. Yeah. You know, everything is individual. But, you know, the thing I would say about motherhood is, and I think one of the biggest things that I've reflected on and bring into practice is how easy it is to have our own expectations and how the moment you set up that invisible goalpost, you're basically saying whatever you're doing from a parenting perspective is either like you've won or not, like it's gone well or not. And actually, sometimes I think our expectations of kids are so high. Or, you know, and thanks to all of this social media noise as well. I mean, I got really in my head about my daughter's sleep. You know, I was like, she is last in line when they handed that bad boy out, you know, like, mummy has some sleep now. And in hindsight, I look back and with my real like development brain on and work brain and after talking with colleagues, I go, her sleep was exactly how it should have been. Yeah. My expectations were just wildly off. And then I had to ask myself, why were they wildly off? You know, I consider myself well educated and know how to pick apart.
With like social media.
Yeah, it's like social media. It's social media.
Comparison sometimes.
Yeah. And anywhere I went, everyone would be like, you know, yeah, my child's sleeping through. And I'd be like, what? Yeah. You know, and like I think my daughter slept through for the first time she's about 19 months old, you know, and nearly heading towards 2. And I think the same goes around food and like just not parents put so much pressure on themselves and sometimes just unpacking that and taking it off and going, I know all of this is important to you, but actually this pressure for you to feel like you've got to get it right or get this thing right or your child's supposed to be a certain way or eat a certain thing.
Well, huge. I can imagine like huge. For anyone, definitely if you've not had, it's your first child as well. You're never going to get it right first time.
There is no getting it right. Everyone is doing their best, you know, and you learn with hindsight. You know, I've said to my husband, God, you know, if we do have a second child, definitely won't stress so much about, you know, sleep. But then who knows, maybe I'll have a child who's got lots of allergies or reflux or, you know, has developmental differences. And actually there'll always be something to worry about and always something where you think, is this something I've done? What could I do differently? But I think it's just have the moments where you go, why do I expect that of my child? And also is like, sometimes I'm like, is that fair to have expected that of a 2-year-old? You know, I'm an adult with a fully developed brain. And this was another thing I threw into the book. What is going on at this age? Like, what should I expect from them? Yeah. You know, hold on a minute. I'm expecting them to act like an adult. She's 2. Come on, Lucy, come back down to her level, be fun, be playful, make it silly. And then immediately, we're back out of this. So I think it's just try not to give yourself too many expectations. Yeah.
And I think I'd kind of love to kind of touch upon like social media and kind of like the pros and cons of that. Has that been great in terms of like raising awareness and
personally kind of for work? Yeah. So social media, you'll know this, is like, how many times have I said double-edged sword on this podcast?
I think it's a double-edged sword these days, isn't it?
I love it. I was very early on told by a very good doctor and friend, Lucy, you've got to meet your parents where they are, and your parents are on social media. And they were right. Yeah. They were right. And I shied away from it for a long time because I think when you're a healthcare professional...
When did you start your page then?
It's about 6 years old. 5 and a half.
Yeah, about similar to me, like, I think when...
Yeah. And I think, you know, I was very worried about what other people might think. It was not perhaps perceived as a very professional thing to do at that time. I mean, it's proliferated now and there's health professionals on social media everywhere. And I'm like really glad that I went for it, to be honest. Because what it did was not gatekeep information and make information accessible. And I've always had the mantra of, if this helps one family. And I know people were like, oh, really, Lucy? No, I did that. I was like, if one person buys my book, if one person watches this video, like that would normally be X amount of time in clinic with me, or, you know, that's what I want to do this for, because this is a way of reaching people and connecting with people and helping people join the dots, and also connecting with other like-minded professionals and individuals. And it's opened up this incredible world. But some days it's hard work. And I think you will fully appreciate this too. Nobody realizes, one, how long social media takes, that all that editing, planning. It's got a lot more complicated, hasn't it?
I met someone the other day. I was like, I really appreciate like the fact like you don't do it full time. I think people think I do this full time.
It's not my job. I say this to people all the time.
I'm like an ad editor. This is just like a passion
This is a side bit.
And I love it. And like, I think with like, I always get asked as well, would you want to do Making Saying full time? It's really difficult. Like it's not, the
creativity is very energy draining, isn't it?
Yeah, and like, maybe if you could do the podcast full time, but like it's so hard like within the allergy space. It's not like, even if you was in the gluten space, like there's a lot more opportunities out there. With allergies, there's definitely less opportunities within that. And for me, it's just like, I think I was always frustrated as well. Like a lot of people don't have access to like allergy doctors or like experts in the field. And that's a great thing about the podcast. Like I have access to all these incredible people who are willing to kind of sit down with me for an hour. Yeah. And then people can like learn so much from that. When like, for example, like if they're scared about flying, well, why don't get an expert on talking about that? And it just frustrates me like sometimes when sometimes like people get an expert on and they charge him like for people to kind of like watch that, or like and that can be like I understand it, you know, if
there's the whole business monetization side of things, isn't it? Like is a way up, but it is
it's finding the balance for me. I understand like you've got to pay the bills because like
we all got to pay bills.
Like, I've got to cover the cost of this sometimes. And I think people understand that. Well, I think they do like now, but like it's fine. It's always finding that balance of like just giving away as much free information, and then hopefully when you've got something which you're like, this is going to bring so much value. For me, it's like with the course, I think it brings value. You hope that people then would pay then to get access to that kind of thing.
Exactly, and I think this is it. You sort of set up this opportunity, don't you? But it is, like you say, tiring. And some days I sit there and I'm like, quite frankly, I can't be asked this week. And then you probably the same. You sit there and you think, I probably should post something. I probably should do something. And it is, I always describe social media as the job which has no end and no end of hours you could put into it. It's never neatly packaged. There is always, you could always give more. You could always give more. And that in itself is quite it's like a black hole of work. And as you say,
it's quite overwhelming. Like, because I think like sometimes like if I see something I'm not happy with, I'll do a video about it. But then you get like, sometimes you get people which are not happy with what if it's about flying with allergies or whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, you can't please everyone, and you just kind of got to like have a bit of a thick skin. I think I've definitely got more of a thick skin.
I couldn't agree more. I honestly,
remember the first time I got a little bit of negativity. I was like, oh my God.
I stewed on it for days. And especially as a professional, I was like, oh my gosh, you know,
start questioning
you know, because I have to be very careful about how I word things, the information, etc. So everyone's exactly the same. But I've increasingly just realised that, you know, that isn't mine to own. I actually have I have a very important rule that someone gave me very early on, and that is if any comment or feedback or whatever else it might be, like under a post or whatever, is rude or abusive or could question the community that I've got there, what they're doing, and could be harmful in any way, I consider social media my front door. And quite frankly, if I wouldn't let it in, it's gone. So I'm quite happy to take things like that away. But the rest, you know, I'm very happy to have conversation and debate, you know, and I'm happy, you know, to hear other people's opinions. But what I won't tolerate is a spread of misinformation or judgment or things that are going to cause that community extra worry, extra harm, extra stress. I did a video the other day where it was like, I felt like it was like misinformation and stuff. And like, it's interesting because like, you always get the 99% positive. You get 1% there's always going to be. I accept that there always will be. And that's, I'm actually okay. And I think it's almost, you all know this, it's just a burden of being in an online space. You're right. You will never please everybody. Someone will always purposely have, or for whatever reason, have a different opinion or have a different experience. And like, that is completely okay. But it is sometimes hard work.
I think the best thing for me basically is like, I definitely don't overthink the content less. And I kind of, if I've got an idea, I kind of just get a camera,
just get on with
tripod, and just film it.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot more of that. Just like, I'm going to talk head reel.
And like, it's so much easier. Like, I don't script it. Like, I don't really script many of the videos. I think it's like, I've got a topic, I've got a story. This is
comes across naturally though, doesn't it? Yeah, this is it. Everyone laughs whenever I do any filming. I was doing some on Friday and someone was like, I say, your script? And I was like, there will be no script. because anytime I have a script, I go off script within about 3 lines.
And if I was going to do a script, it'd be like
Hello,
3 bullet points.
my name's
Like, here's 3 bullet
yeah.
points I want to get across.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I don't really do too much of it now, kind of thing.
No.
I mean, do you have a plan of where? You've grown it to like 90,000.
I think it's about 95,000 at the moment.
95,000 on Instagram.
Yeah.
Are you on TikTok as well?
Yeah, I've got nearly 50,000 on TikTok as well, which is a totally different space.
How much?
Wild.
How much time and effort do you put in? Like,
Oh my God, I wish I could tell you.
Is it a bit much? Do you like film in batch and then you like?
That's what I should do, Dan. That's what
I should do.
That's what I should do. I should get into the flow of filming and do it. I try really hard to kind of make a plan for the week and think about topics and think, yeah, I'll do that on that lunchtime. I'll quickly, whack out a video like you, and I want to get these points across. But the reality is, because it isn't my job, and I have a clinical caseload of children, and I am a director at a feeding clinic, and I have my own daughter, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. And so I think what I try and do is, again, kind of let go of the perfectionism. And if I've seen something in clinic where I'm doing something and I think I should talk about that, is literally just set up my phone and the microphone and just get it out. And actually, often they're the videos that do well, because people, I think, feel like they're being spoken to, and you can make it very relatable and they can resonate with it. So yeah, chipping away though, not an overnight just blow up. This has been a really steady journey.
It's been so slow for me. Like, it's took me like same as you, like 6 years, and then the last 6 months it's doubled. Yeah. In 6 months, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's
strange, isn't it?
6 years
chugging away.
And then the last 6 months, it's just like, it's crazy how
it is. Algorithms and all sorts.
Maybe it's just like different content, but it's mad how like you spend 6 years doing something and then
all of a sudden it just takes off.
It can just take off.
Yeah. It's mental.
Video and then the momentum of that.
Yeah, I've had a few videos that have just gone crazy, and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting those to go crazy. It just shows you never know, do you?
You never
throw
expect,
it out. You throw it out in the
yeah.
ether, and you see if anyone has a little nibble, and that's just how I think about it all the time. I've stopped worrying about metrics, and I'm just like, I want to say this, so I'm going to say this today. And if it lands, it lands, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And back to the mantra, if it helps one family, it's done the job. Yeah.
And if anyone wants to kind of follow your kind of Instagram and your book as well,
I'm a book, that's in Amazon and Waterstones, and it's in libraries. I was really please.
And what's the full title of it?
So the full title. Are you ready? So it's The Ultimate Guide to Children's Nutrition. Is probably all the bit you need to know. There's an under bit, which is how to raise healthy happy eaters in the first 5 years. You can't miss all the fruit all over the front and the vegetables and stuff. I mean, very classic dietitian, but I wanted something bold and some different stuff on there. Yeah. So that's out. You can find me on Instagram at Children's Dietitian, and that's the same across all my platforms. On my website, again, if you just Google my name and Children's Dietitian, it's pretty easy to find me now. So
amazing. Yeah, absolute pleasure to have on the podcast.
You too. Thank you, Dan.
It's been really good. Thank you.